All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Texas Business Broker. I am one part of your co-host here. My name is Josh Carnes with Lion Business Advisors. And also with me is the other co-host, Richard Gadberry. Richard, go ahead and say hi.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Richard Gadberry here. I'm the chapter president in the DFW area, and welcome to our podcast.
Absolutely. And today we figured the best way to start this out is to interview part of the reason why we're all still doing this, Scott Cronk, your state president. Scott, go ahead, Zach.
Howdy. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys putting this together, and thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. So the point of this podcast is to really just highlight being a business broker, doing M&A deals here in Texas. And so we thought it best to start out with Scott and talk a little bit about TABB, the reason, the purpose, the vision, and all that. But before we get into that, Scott, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about the company you run, and all the fun things you got going on.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks a lot. So I'm a business broker down here in Austin, Texas. My company, the Tyler's Venture Group, I'm a sole practitioner, so it's just me. I tell people I'm the square peg in the round hole guy. I do a lot of the deals that other folks don't want to do. I do a number of small deals, enjoy doing franchise deals. We know the franchise industry and those requirements and what we can do on a resale, et cetera. So that comes on the heels of, I guess it's been 30 years ago now. I was part of a team who took a semiconductor instrumentation company public back in the early 90s, and we had a fun run there. We took that company public, did a secondary, bought another company, and ended up selling it. I had a little flexibility with what I do with my life, so I ran a professional race team and had a little bit of fun for a number of years. And then when my oldest was starting kindergarten, we moved back to Texas. My wife's from Texas, so no place better to be. 2004, and that's when we hung the shingle out and started business brokerage. So it's been a fun run. I've been part of TABB pretty much the whole time, and really enjoy it. Really enjoy being in a leadership role in the team that we built, and that all we've done with TABB. And we're grateful for the Texas economy.
Yeah, or no kidding.
So let's start out with TABB, right? You want to give a quick overview. I think TABB is a underutilized system here in Texas. I know a lot of business brokers that aren't really involved. I think that's changing this year with some of the changes that the leadership group at the state level has pushed out. So why don't you go ahead and give us a quick overview of what is TABB, what's its purpose, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. So, simply the mission of, TABB is to educate and promote, right, members to become successful business brokers, right, and make sure we're doing it with integrity and properly, and promote education. And really the foundation of TABB is the monthly chapter meetings, right? We have 4 chapters. You have Dallas and Austin, which you guys run, and we've got Houston and San Antonio. And that's really the foundation. It's amazing networking. It's amazing networking that happens at the chapter levels in their monthly meetings. So that's really what the foundation is. Then supported by our monthly education courses, and education is going to be a big topic for us in 2024. We'll talk about that probably a little bit later. Then at the state level, it's kind of road mapping, if you will, how to bring value, right? One of the challenges that we tried to address head on in our 2023 planning meeting is the value proposition for TABB. I mean, I personally believe every business broker should be part of TABB for the simple matter of being a steward for our industry, right?
That's the line that suckered me in.
Yeah, so right? So you can be a steward for our industry, right? And we're an aging industry. I'm 61, and I used to be the young guy as part of the program. So, but yeah, it's road mapping and it's adding value. And I think we've done a really good job at that. We finally formalized our relationship with IBBA in 2023. So that's a big change you'll see in 2024. The bad news is, I guess, your TABB dues are going up in 2024. But the really good news is if you were a member of TABB and IBBA, you're saving a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And because the new relationship, right, essentially you pay your TABB dues and you get a membership in both TABB and IBBA, and you get all the member benefits that IBBA brings to the table, which is a huge return on investment.
So speaking about the length of time that you've been with TABB, what are some of the changes that you've seen in the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? So I think the biggest change over the last couple years has been really a revitalization at the chapter level, right? A refocusing on the topics that are the topics and the speakers at the chapter level. And Richard, I think you drove a lot of that along with Josh, right? But we are constantly focused on how people can be a better business broker. And, the words I like to use is, how do you go to the bank more, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in this to make money. And so how do you go to the bank more and be more efficient? And to do that, you have to put more tools in your quiver, right? And so when you have better topics at the chapter level and content that brings value, people have an interest in coming. You used to be able to tell the interest of the topic based on how many people showed up, right? Well, now, like Austin, which is my local chapter, right, it's pretty much sold out on a monthly basis. And I know you in Dallas are up in terms of your numbers as well. Like overall membership is up like 25% in 2023. So some of the changes, if you go back 15 years, I mean, we really struggled through the financial crisis. Membership was dropping and we were burning cash. As an entity right now, we've got a good cash runway, a responsible cash runway that you'd want to see in a nonprofit. Nobody's making any money at this. We're all volunteers. Every one of us is a volunteer. We do have basically an association management company that helps run the company or run the association. But other than that, we're all volunteers. So we do have to have a financial runway because, the 2007, 8, 9, 10 timeframe, I don't know the exact years, but it was tough. But real recently, if you're focused on the last 4 or 5 years, right? So COVID, right? We went to virtual meetings and who knew which end was up for that period of time. And, we sustained through that. But it's really that revitalization, I think, at the chapter level, driven by the content. Does that make sense? You guys see the same thing?
Josh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here in Austin, it's definitely been interesting. When I took over as chapter president this year, I bounced around all the other chapters just to see what they're doing and to get ideas. And full disclosure, I stole a bunch of stuff from Houston and Dallas on just ideas and how they were operating their meetings and focusing on speakers. And it has been interesting. We still are the only chapter that operates out of the back of a bar, as I was told when we were bouncing around. But it's been fun. We got a small room. We're averaging 35 to 40 people. We sold out 3 times this last year, and hopefully we'll keep doing it. So,
just got one of my experiences early on, and one of the reasons I stayed away from TABB was I would go into a TABB meeting and they were like two sides of the room. And one side of the room would be the aged guys, 70-year-old, 65-year-old guys with gray hair. And on the other side, you'd have the 30, 40-year-olds, and they don't communicate, they don't share. The older guys they're not co-brokering. And it was to me, it just wasn't what we were supposed to be about. And I didn't join TABB for a long time just for that particular reason. I wanted to ask you if you had a similar experience in your perspective.
Yeah, so that's an interesting observation. One, I'm not sure that in Austin we had a bunch of 30 and 40-year-old business brokers. So would love to have that. We do now. We do have younger business brokers now. That's clearly one of the changes. Right in Austin, I think one of the issues we had was the business brokers on one side of the room and the bankers on the other side of the room, and then everybody else that supports the industry kind of in the middle. And that's really shuffled now, right? As people are really sharing. But yeah, some of the historical mentality, I think, is I was going to say breaking down. I don't know that that's the proper terminology, if you will, but everybody's willing to share, right? So, and I think that's a bit unique to our industry. Is I've always found that everybody is willing to share and willing to help one another. And the chapter meetings now have facilitated a bunch more of the approachability, right? So we see at least a good mix, and I see when I go to the chapter meetings, right, a good mix of people, and I think that's a good observation, and that's a really positive change.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's attributed to the fact that people are realizing deals are getting done in these chapter meetings. One of the things we started doing in Austin is allowing all of the brokers to highlight one specific deal. And they're getting approached afterwards by bankers with buyers, or we have buyers attending our meetings, and we open it up to buyers. And so deals are actually being facilitated in these local chapter meetings, which is a huge value add, especially if you're on the younger side or a newer broker and having trouble getting those deals done. I think that's been one of the big bonuses and changes, at least at our Austin chapter side.
Yeah, I often think that, like you said earlier, Scott, the value proposition of TABB, if you're a practicing business broker out there and you have to make a decision today to go spend $45 or whatever it is to come to one of our luncheons, or write the SIM, or fill out a listing agreement, or go talk to a client, that we need to provide substantial value. We need, and the topic needs to be germane to business brokering. And how can I close another deal? How can I get one more listing? How can I market better? Who's the best valuator, and how do I do ad backs correctly? And things that really help people get deals done. And I think we've focused on that. I know you have as well, and Josh and Scott. And we've seen a tremendous growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter. I think we added 30, 40 people this year. Off the tail of our two conferences, really created a buzz. And that's what I hear when I talk to people about TABB. Is they say, you guys haven't made a buzz in a long, long time, and now I'm seeing information coming out. I see a buzz in the marketplace. Even our socials, we're picked up a substantial amount of people that come to our socials, and they're all over the place. Scott, question for you as a follow-up. I know Texas is not a real estate state, and we're not governed by real estate, but how much do you think Trek leaks into some of the business brokering stuff that we do?
Yeah, so I think our education classes that are TREC certified are a really important part of what we do, and something that we want to focus on moving forward. Yeah, we're not a licensed regulated state. We don't have to have a real estate license. Certainly, value added. Would encourage everybody to do so. And I need to take some of my own advice there for what it's worth. Full disclosure, but. Our education classes really are paramount, right? Everything we do has to focus on professional ethical conduct, right? In conducting that way. And, our transactions, while sometimes they involve real estate, right? they're really unique in terms of working with the financials, et cetera. And, I've been involved with a real estate person on the other side, and it's the transaction could have been a whole lot better for everybody, right? Had everybody had the same level of education about the transaction and how to go about things. So our business, as you know, our business is really unique, right? Well, the process follows a lot like the real estate process. The detail, right? The layers of the onion, right, are really more about the financials and financial due diligence and operating the business and running the business, et cetera. So, excuse me. So, yeah, I think that our relationship with Trek is important. I think you'll see an initiative in 2024 to push our education classes and to get more of our classes Trek certified.
Before we hop into too much of what 2024 is going to look like, I want to touch on a couple of things that Richard asked earlier, diving into the change that's taken place. I think this last year was a lot of change. I think a lot of people saw a lot of change in the local chapters, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes with the leadership groups, the chapter presidents, the state board, and all of that. One of the biggest pieces that we lightly touched on was the IBBA relationship. And so we've cleared that out. I want to ask a couple of things that it's not for clarification's sake. So when I was at the IBBA national conference, man, I heard everything from TABB's no longer going to exist to we're selling out and giving ourselves back over to the IBBA, all sorts of fun stuff. So that relationship coming back together, Scott, what exactly is it that's transpiring? What is the relationship looking like moving forward? What changed? What do we actually do this year?
Yeah, sure. So one, it's definitely none of those things that you heard, right? So TABB still exists and we will always exist, knock on wood, right? And we have to have our own education classes for our real estate people to take, Trek certified classes, et cetera. So education will always be a part of what we do, and TABB education will be a part of what we do. So really what we've done is simply, if you will, connected at the hip, right? We've agreed to have a joint relationship with IBBA that every TABB member will now also have an IBBA membership. So a membership in TABB gets you a membership in IBBA. And with the membership in IBBA, you essentially get, you get all of the IBBA member benefits. So the simplest way to look at it is we've bought the IBBA member benefits for all our members, right? And that those benefits are huge, right? They have a wonderful return on investment for us, right? The business reference guide, right? It's a few $100. You're an IBBA member. Now you get access to that for free, right? So you've got, I'm looking at the list right here, right? You got BizMiner and, relationship with Deal Studio that a number of people are using for SIMs or CBRs. I use it for my website and also my CRM, right? The value source marketplace database and V-rooms, right? A virtual data room. So you've got all these real benefits that IBBA brings to the table that now pass through to every TABB member. I think that's really what it is. It's really about member benefits. I mean, hopefully in a minute we'll talk about, specifically the TABB member benefits that we've implemented in 23 and looking forward to 24. But as it specifically relates to IBBA, right? TABB's still its own entity. We still do our own thing. Always will. We are the heartbeat of business transactions in the state of Texas, anchored around our chapter meetings and networking and our education, both in terms of our chapter programming, but in the TABB education courses that are offered as well. And IBBA will be out there. We'll have that relationship and joint membership and member benefits. Does that make sense?
No, let me ask you a follow-up question to that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So let me ask a follow-up question, Scott. If you're a new broker sitting here and figuring out where to spend your money, and you got the IBBA TABB relationship, and you got M&A Source, you got AMA, and all that stuff, what would you think relative to where's the best place to join, or do you need to be a member of all of those things?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think it would be TABB, right? But the driving force to TABB, right, to me is the local network, right? So local networking where you can go and you can talk to people with extensive experience in the industry. You can meet bankers that want to do transactions. You can meet attorneys that are there. You can meet bookkeepers that'll, help clean up financials if you need to. Now, some of it depends on, the size of the deal. But if your focus is kind of Main Street, Main Street, lower Main Street, lower end middle market, there's no place better than TABB for the local networking and the education and the people that you meet. And then in terms of return on investment, right? I mean, every business broker should have, right, access to the business reference guide, right? It's a simple way to look at things, and to buy that on your own is $250, right? Well, now, member of TABB, you get access. You get access to those things, and so if I were just starting out, and by the way, when I did just start out in 2004, that's the first thing that I did is join TABB, right? And go and meet people that, that can help me, David Garner and the folks at Lawyers Escrow, right? I remember like going back through my first transaction, I literally called David and I'm like, David, I'm new to this, right? So guide me through this. And, they were wonderful to have there and, coach through the transaction.
What's funny is I think 5 years ago, I had a different answer to this question. So I remember sitting down and doing a cost benefit analysis and saying, TABB, I get a discount on launch. IBBA, I get all these things. And so just from a financial standpoint, as a young guy starting out, I used to tell people, you go to the IBBA, that's where you're going to get the most stuff. You can join TABB later. I would 100% agree that is not my answer anymore. That's not the solution. And this is coming from someone, I think myself and Richard and people who have been in the industry for a very long time and doing different deals. We're a member of all of them, right? We're a member of IBA, M&A Source, AMA, all the stuff. But I 100% agree with Scott. Now, when you actually break down the cost benefit analysis, you're starting out where you're going to spend those early dollars. You got to go to TABB. If you're a broker in Texas, that has to be the starting place. And I think it rolls into, because not only are you automatically going to get an IBBA membership, so you're going to get all those things, but as Scott pointed out, we've done a lot of work this year, and there are other benefits that are only available to those TABB members. So Scott rolls into it. We've hit on the local stuff, but what other benefits does a new TABB member get day one walking into TABB?
Sure. So, one of the things that we launched in 2023 was a training program with Action Coach, right? That's like a $5,000. If you're a business owner and you wanted to engage Action Coach to improve your business, that costs you $5,000. So we're able to launch that in a series of Zoom sessions with the Action Coach folks. So I think that was a huge win for those that chose to be part of it. I remember one of the participants shared that they were struggling on a $25 million listing, getting the listing, and they ended up using some of the techniques that Action brought to the table, and they were successfully able to secure that listing. And they attribute that 100% to Action Coach. And we look forward to their program that they're going to offer in 2024. So we launched Action Coach training. It's optional. It's a member benefit in 2023. That was the first part. And then we've taken that, right? We've established a relationship with Tupelo on a CRM perspective. Len Crick was one of our featured speakers at our state conference. We've done a relationship with him on his Fast Start program. We're now, if you're a new broker, right, you can get a discount on the Len Crick Fast Start program, which is it's everything that you need to get launched, and access and direction to all the tools. And I think with the TABB discount, it's like $850, I think, or something like that. But Len is in the leave a legacy part of his world. He lives in Vegas, but he's focused hard on basically improving the business brokerage community. So we're really happy to to add that, and we'll continue to look at what we can add in terms of member benefits on a local basis. We've got the TABB documents that are there, and that's one of the things that some folks value, some don't. I value it because I'm an independent. I'm not part of a system, so I can go into the TABB forms area, and forms is something that we talk about in our state board meeting all the time, and there's a portfolio of forms that are in there, whether it be a listing agreement or various other things that you need, right, to operate your business and do it within those professional and ethical standards. So those are some of the highlights.
Yeah, I think the forms came in really handy during COVID. TABB was really quick to push out the necessary COVID addendums and waivers and all of that, to where that's where I really saw those forms benefits come into play.
Yeah, we're lucky. Mark Avery is our state general counsel. He's done thousands of transactions, and so he understands the transaction side. So we're grateful for the time that he donates to the organization and the tools that he helps us put in place. And those are some examples.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we've had lawyers, provide us with template asset purchase agreements, and the heavy and the light and all kinds of things like that have really been helpful. It has to be really helpful to anybody in the industry to have that in their database.
And then some of the revitalization really started with the 2022 state conference in Dallas, right? That Richard, you and your team led, right? We'd kind of gone dark in terms of the conference due to COVID, and everybody regrouping there, and with really relatively short notice, 90, 100 days or whatever, we just put together, really, you guys put together a fantastic conference in Dallas. It was super, it was super from an energy perspective, from an education perspective, from a, wow, look at where we're going perspective. It really, if you talk about a pivot point with TABB in terms of its trajectory upward in terms of members, upward in terms of energy, upward in terms of financials, etc. It was really the state conference in 2022, and on the heels of that, we came to Austin in 2023. We had attendance was up. We had speakers from all over the country, recognized speakers, and so I think that just continued, if you will, to flame the fire of success and energy and positivity. And so we're working hard right now on a 2024 state conference in the fall. And the intent is for it to be in Houston. So kind of share the love a little bit in terms of who's working on this, on these things. So Dan and his team over there and Josh and I are helping, but we're working hard to, secure some dates and location for a 2024 state conference in the Houston area.
I actually think that's going to be a big conference too, because I took it as a little personal challenge when we were hosting in Austin. Everyone was like, all right, if Richard and the Dallas team can put together a conference in 90 days and have it be that successful, if all of a sudden we had a full year, I was like, it's got to be better than Dallas. So we got to step up our game. And I can tell you this is Dan has already given me a little bit of ribbing of it's got to be better than Dallas and Austin, right? So Houston's probably going to step it up next year. It should be a really good event next year with all of us just trying to top each other and do what's best to really grow the industry. So.
Yeah, and to your point, and thank you for mentioning that, Scott. To your point, one of the things that I kind of run my business on, you've mentioned before how you're kind of metric driven, Scott. I kind of listen to what my clients say, and from a TABB perspective, the back end of the conference, what you heard was, we haven't heard this buzz in quite a while. It's good to see TABB stepping up, doing things, making it, making some noise. And your conference in Austin was also very, very good. Like you mentioned, I couldn't believe all the sponsors that you had and coming from different parts of the country. Really cool for a Texas-based organization like that to bring in such wonderful sponsors.
Yeah, the team worked really hard. It was a good team. I can't speak highly enough about all the volunteers that we have within TABB, those that serve on the state board, those that serve on the, the chapter boards, et cetera, right? They're truly committed to doing the right thing for our industry. And, that's a big part of what TABB's about.
I'm going to make a statement and just like to hear what you guys comment about it. When I think of TABB and IBBA, those are, to me, organizations that are in place to help business brokers grow and be better, be more educated, best practices, and those kind of things. And M&A Source and some of those other things are really more networking. You go to happy hour, but there's no specific program per se. And so, I just wanted to make that comment and have you agree, disagree, or add to whatever.
Josh?
Yeah, I'd even go a step further and say that TABB and the other state associations are really the only, local piece that involves it all with education and networking and all of that, right? So I think IBBA's, probably 80-90% education focused outside of the annual conference. And then some of the others are purely the, AM&AA, that type of stuff. It's a quarterly networking. Then you go to M&A Source. They're only conferences and education and at a much higher level than anything else. So I would say whether it be TABB or any state, I think most of the state organizations operate on the same level. They're super focused on local education and getting deals done. And you can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our mission, right, starts with guide business brokers and all professionals in the transaction and professional and ethical conduct, right? So as we've talked, right, that education and that professional ethical conduct is that is at the very foundation of what TABB stands for.
As we hit on this, let's roll into 2024 and kind of some expectations. What does 2024 look like for TABB from your state of mind? I know we have a big in-person meeting coming up to kind of set the agenda, but let's tease that a little bit. What does 2024 TABB look like for you, Scott?
Sure. So Josh remembers this, and I'm glad, right? At our January 2023 in-person planning conference, I said if they weren't so dang expensive, I was going to bring everybody a transformer, right? That was our theme in 2023, right? Is to envision the transformer and work to transform things, just challenge the status quo and how we do things. And that ended up with the formalization of the IBBA relationship and the additional member benefits and those things. So as we roll in 2024, so one, our highest priority has to be the implementation of the IBBA relationship, right? So that IBBA has done this before. We're not the first state association to do this. They've done it with in Florida and others. So first and foremost has to be the implementation, right? So of that relationship. But in terms of new initiatives, right, top of my mind is education, right? Again, paramount in terms of what we do. Ed Gonzalez led our education for a number of years. He stepped down from the board. He's done a wonderful job in establishing a solid foundation for us. So now we're going to look and take education to the next level, right? And we're not looking back; we're looking forward. Any water that's under the bridge that's behind us. We're looking downstream now. We're looking forward to how do we best serve our members. And to me, that's a number of things. So first, it's looking at our current TABB classes and make sure that we have a slate of education classes that are being offered. The next part of that is looking at our education classes and seeing what additional classes, if any, should be TREC certified. The third piece of that is looking at the delivery mechanism in terms of how we deliver the classes. In parallel to that, we've initiated conversations with IBBA regarding education. So we have 19 BCBs, it's board certified brokers, which is the TABB designation. Of those 19, I think 8 also have an IBBA CBI. So it's taking it at the state board level and looking at a blank piece of paper and saying, okay, what makes sense here, right? It's truly going to be a blank piece of paper as we look to revitalize education. So in terms of new initiatives, that's my highest priority to get done in 2024 is to get everybody on the same page in terms of education. I would love to see us formalize a relationship with IBBA. There is a process for IBBA to recognize the TABB classes. A number of our instructors are already IBBA certified instructors. So it's getting some of our current TABB classes IBBA certified. It's us recognizing some of the IBBA classes or all of the IBBA classes, and then figuring out, do we have the best process and best approach for certified brokers, right? Do we need a BCB, right? Should everybody just have a CBI? How do we go about that? And how do we take care of and I believe my numbers are right, but essentially the 11 people that just have a BCB. And again, I think we have a solution for that with IBBA to make sure that they're covered. So yeah. So in terms of the next the next picture from the transformer will be challenging everything we do from an education perspective, with the understanding that that's at the very forefront of what we stand for is education.
Awesome. It's very well said. You must have practiced that.
I wish I did.
They record it.
Yeah. Hey, so I've got a question for both Richard and Scott. This one goes to both of you guys. So from one of the questions I've got, we do have a lot of newer members coming into Austin and to TABB. Next year is going to be an election year. So looking ahead at 2024 still, with it being an election year, things like that, what should we expect in any forethought into what next year is going to look like just being a business broker in Texas? Any insight there?
Richard, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I've always been told, and I live by this mantra that good brokers get deals done no matter what. Ice Age, planes crashing, 9/11, whatever. Good brokers get deals done. There's been times in the past years where SBA quit lending. Wells Fargo, I remember, I think it was 2010, Wells Fargo kind of hold the monopoly on SBA lending, and there was a 6-month waiting period to get deals done through Wells Fargo. You're just sitting on a deal for a long time. And with the election coming up, the history has said that people get a little bit queasy when elections are coming up. They hold their cards, they wait on things. What are interest rates going to do? And so I would say to young brokers out there, be prepared to do some seller financing or alternate lending, through private equity and things like that, because we may have a situation where people are sitting on deals for a while.
Yeah, I agree with Richard that deals that meet the criteria. And Richard, I actually think I learned this from you 10 or 15 years ago, right? But I always look for businesses that have stood the test of time, have good books and records, and are priced correctly, right? So if you end up with businesses that have been around for a long time, they've got good books and records, that doesn't mean that they don't live through the business a little bit, but they responsibly do that. We know where that is. And then you price it correctly in light of all the circumstances, right? So we've got 10%, give or take, SBA rates, right? So it's still got to be priced correctly. But if you can meet all those criteria, I still think you'll get deals done, especially Main Street and below, right? So, in the most recent Biz Buy Sell Insight report, right, I see that business sales are actually up a tick. The average multiple on cash flow is down a tick, which is kind of exactly what you'd expect, in this market. The actual average days on the market is down. And you see that business owners, right, are cautiously optimistic about the future, but potential buyers are really optimistic. And so that's where things are. I think that probably the election year may impact some of the, middle market deals, some of the bigger deals, as they probably have the luxury to see what happens. There's obviously still concern about higher costs for businesses as impacted by, inflation. We are seeing some concerns, right, about the demand side, that's out there, and how it is an impact in the economy going to affect the demand for goods and services. So I think businesses that are priced right for the financials are going to sell regardless of the situation. They may be harder to find as sellers kind of may choose a wait and see. The other thing for Main Street and smaller deals, right, is you have the potential now to have more individual buyers in the market, right? So those that want to control their own destiny through business brokerage, as opposed to going back into the to the labor force. So I always tell people, right, if you own your own business and you're good at it, nobody can ever take it away from you, right? And you can build it as big as you want or as small as you want, right? I mean, 30 years ago, I was part of a team that ran $150 million a year, publicly traded company, and I ran the two largest divisions. Today I'm a sole practitioner and, in business brokerage and, just doing the number of deals and the type of deals that I want because it's comfortable for my lifestyle. And so as we see potential impacts to the economy and corporations lay off individuals, those that have the capacity to own a business and look at it. And I define the capacity to own a business as, right, you've got the skill set, you've got the money, right, you've got the motivation that's out there. And then the last part, which is sometimes is the hardest part, is you've got the guts to do it, right? But because, if you come from in Austin, if you come from Dell, right, you've got this amazing support structure, you got this amazing brand name. And then when you become an owner of a small business, you become the CEO and the janitor all at the same time.
Right.
You're your own IT guy, et cetera. So I think you'll see more individual buyers that are out there in the marketplace. But I do think the key to getting transactions done will be the priced right in light of the economic conditions at the time.
Let me just add to that too, because I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the basics of business brokering are the same. Make sure you work with a motivated seller, good books and records, reasonable expectations, all those things have, priced right and all that. And sometimes when the market is more open and more, just more open, I guess the interest rates are down, you can kind of move off of that a little bit, take some listings that maybe are have a little bit more hair on them, more add backs and things like that. But the tighter the market is, the tighter the banking industry, the interest rates go up, you really have to, hone in on marketing correctly and taking the right kind of listings. You got about 5 shots at this. I always tell people in this industry, if you're really good and, you're going to close 5 or 6 deals a year, and you can choose whether you want to take 30 listings to get the 5 or 6 or 10 to get the 5 or 6, or the 5 or 6 to get the 5 or 6. You can choose that. And so when the market's tighter, you probably need to just hone in on yourself and make sure you're taking good clients. Just like if you're going on vacation, just like if you're going on a long trip, plan for success rather than just taking listings to take listings.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings is don't confuse activity for progress.
Exactly.
Right. And I tell that a lot to people that are doing, looking at businesses, et cetera. Remind myself that a lot as well, right? When, exactly the scenario that you're in, right? I'd rather have 5 or 6 listings to do 5 or 6 transactions, personally, as opposed to 10 or 20 or 30, where you've got a ton of activity, right? But you're not necessarily making any progress. And to me, it's about that professional and ethical standards, and it's about going to the bank.
Scott, we got into this business because we love doing deals. And you mentioned it earlier. So I'd rather, and I know we've been talking about TABB and the industry and all that, but let's circle back to you. What is it that you enjoy taking the round hole and plug it in the square peg and all that stuff? What's the I love to do this moment for Scott Cronk?
Candidly, I like to help the people that nobody else will help, right? And whether that means, buying a business or selling a business, et cetera. I like to see people achieve their, personal, professional, and financial goals through business ownership, right? It's helped me immensely spend time with my family. I got 2 boys that are, growing. One's 24, one's 17 now. And, both baseball players, and I got to coach their teams and, spend a big part, of that time with them. So I like to help people achieve their dreams through business ownership, right? And business ownership, that may be, hey, I want to exit, right? I want to exit and move on, whatever the situation may be. This wasn't right for me, or I've had this business for 30 years and it's time for me to, it's time for me to retire. But it's also on the buy side, right? So I've been laid off 3 times, right? You're not a bad employee, right? You just weren't in the best circumstances, right? So I do a lot of smaller deals, unlike some of you guys, and they're actually harder to do than than the bigger deals. But my passion really is to help the small business owner, and some people are stuck, right? I mean, I helped a lady in Houston who called me 4 months before her lease was up. She owned a business for 20 years and there was no way she was signing another 5-year lease. We basically had 120 days to sell her business, right? And as you guys know, on average, it takes 11 months to sell a business. We had 120 days, or she ended up getting zero for 20 years of work. And we were able to do that, albeit a very creative, creative deal. So it's taking some of, those scenarios. That's really my passion, is helping people and seeing them check the box, and understanding that not everybody needs to make millions of dollars or have the stress of having 10 of something, or it's having that business and making it as big or as small as you want it to be, and check the boxes that this is I'm living the life that I want to live.
That's good. How would you answer that, Josh?
Well, so first of all, I want to give a quick testimonial to Scott. So I've seen Scott stand up and make the statement, square peg in the round hole, all that, and people kind of chuckle. He actually does it. Our team had a deal that one of the guys brought on. He should have never brought it on, and was having trouble finding a buyer for it. And it was a small deal, but it was, they tugged at our guy's heartstrings. It was like literally an 80 or 90-year-old couple that had been running a candy store. It was a hole in the wall shop between Austin and Houston. And it wasn't worth any money. Not big money. Wasn't $1 million deal or anything like that. And our guy was having trouble finding a buyer with it because he is an oil and gas guy, does bigger deals, but he was trying to help this couple out. And we said, call Scott. Scott will find someone. And within 2 or 3 months, Scott was able to find a buyer and help this way older couple exit, retire, put a little cash in their pocket, and walk away from something that was in the same light. They were just going to shut it down and walk away because they were tired. And so a quick testament to Scott when he says he literally does it to help people no matter the size of the deal. He does it and he finds a way to do it. So, it's been a thing where if I look at a deal and I go, man, I just don't think I can help someone, their next call for us and our company is to call Scott. So it's definitely been a thing. So.
Yeah. And, hopefully our relationship too with Action Coach will, help brighten the future. We live in a world today where I think the statistic still is, right, Richard, that 80% of small businesses that go up for sale don't sell, right? Number one reason they're not priced right. Number two reason is that the seller runs out of runway, and that runway is either a lease or a health issue or something. Something along those lines. Well, can you imagine a world where 80% or more of the business is sold, right? So how do you do that, right? Well, again, if they're financially viable, good books and records, and priced right, sell those all day long. And so hopefully we can, we can see a world and start to move in that direction to where those numbers improve with helps the overall our overall industry.
For me, I think most people that I meet, buyers, sellers, lawyers, CPAs, consultants, commercial insurance people, they're all trying to get somewhere. Buyers would love to love to buy a company. Sellers would love to sell their company and retire. And they all people need something, trying to get someplace. And sometimes I don't know how to get there. They think they do. They read some Google stuff and saw a YouTube video and they think they can get there. But when it comes right down to making that important decision in life, they don't have the data, they don't have the information, they don't have the trust or not knowledge to take a step forward. And I think, my skill and my passion is looking at things from a different perspective than your normal briefcase carrying sales guy who thinks he's a business broker trying to sell a business to somebody rather than showing them how to buy a business. I'll focus on the buyer, that individual buyer that's sitting on the couch and made 17 offers that didn't go anywhere, and your wife's on your butt going, "Hey man, get out, go get a job," or the seller who's trying to sell your company, and they like you mentioned, it's overpriced, and a lot of people don't have the skills or the know-how to put that in the take that square peg and turn it into a round peg so you can make it work. And or the private equity company that's just living on a laptop and looking at interest rates or looking at percentages on a spreadsheet rather than making a buying decision. And learning how to negotiate and persuade and cajole and showing people a way to get it done is really my passion. It's like a giant puzzle, and being able to make it happen is really a deal. I recall one time that we had a buyer come in, and 3 people in our company had interviewed this guy and said, "Yeah, he's useless. He doesn't know what he's doing." So let me have a shot at him. And 3 months later, I sold him a $1.2 million vegetable delivery company. All he was looking for cash flow, and nobody asked a question. They just felt like a self-centered sales guy, and didn't ask enough questions to really understand the deal. So I'd say this though, this is a wonderful industry. Like you said, Scott, you control your own life. You never get laid off, downsized. You pick and choose the people you want to work with, and you don't like your clients. Look yourself in the mirror and get rid of them. Get rid of and work with people that are serious and motivated, have good books and records, and buyers that are serious and motivated, have good money, and genuinely interested in buying a company. And lenders that really lend, lawyers that really lawyer, and CPAs that really CPAs, and you pick your business partners, and if you do all that right, then you should be a high closer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I had 2 things I want to touch on too. I think we're coming up on our time, but the first is I love your puzzle analogy, right? Because that's what it is. Putting these transactions together, it's about putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And the interesting part, and I share this with people a lot, is, but the puzzles go together in a number of different ways and just form different pictures, right? So it's how do you put the puzzle pieces together to form the best picture for the parties? And the other thing, I just want to go back to TABB 2024 because I'd be remiss if I didn't put this on the table. The other thing we'll wrestle with in 2024 is some people call it co-brokering. I don't call it co-brokering. I call it fee sharing. Co-brokering has a legal connotation to it. Fee sharing is about paying referral fees or, sharing fee if somebody brings a buyer to the table for a listing that you have, and having a growth mindset of, and a mindset that my fiduciary duty is to my client that I've listed their business, and therefore I'm not going to discount a business broker bringing a buyer to the table for my listing. I'll fee share all the time, right? I'll pay referral fees, and I think that's the responsible thing to do. It's challenging because you've got some bigger firms in terms of that are structured differently than the independents, etc. So that's not a challenge. That's not an easy challenge to take on. But at the state board level, we will be wrestling with fee sharing. We don't govern anything, right? We can't tell people this is how you're going to do it. Right. We can take a position that as an association in terms of what we feel the proper approach to it is. And I can tell you, it's helped me get some listings to say, look, my fiduciary duty is to you, right? And to get that deal done. I'm happy to share a fee with somebody if they're willing to bring me a referral or, guide a buyer through the program to get the transaction done. So, because again, my focus is going to the bank professionally and ethically.
That's right. Well said.
So, well, I think the three of us could probably go on for another hour, and it would probably be some good content. I want to wrap us up. One of the things that I want to close with is the fact that TABB is a volunteer-run organization. None of the three of us, none of the chapter people, none of the people on the state board get paid. We do have a couple vacancies coming up in 2024. So, Scott, if someone's interested in taking a larger role with TABB, what does that look like? What does a business broker need to do to get involved with TABB from a state level and get in on some of that steering?
Yeah. So one, I always encourage, folks, if you're hearing this, make sure you're involved at the local chapter level first and foremost, right? So be there. That is the heartbeat of what we do. If you're interested in terms of what we're doing at the state level, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me through the TABB website. Happy to share my phone number or email address. We have 2 openings at the state level right now. One is the education chair. Richard's brought somebody to the table for that. So hopefully we can get that person on board because that'll be a big role for 2024. And then Ashford Chancellor has been our treasurer, if you will, our financial guy on the board for 4 or 5 years. He's got some other board responsibilities and his business has taken off. So he's stepping down. So, we're looking for somebody with a financial background to be the treasurer. It's really basically ratifying the financial reports that we get from our association management company and going through that. Ashford did play a huge part in the 2023 state conference in terms of keeping us on track and reporting on those things. So the financial person, the treasurer, will participate in that. But it's really doesn't take a lot of time. Yeah, get involved at the chapter level first and foremost. See your chapter president to help navigate things, or reach out to me, and I'm always happy to talk TABB.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for joining us. Scott is our state president. My name is Josh Carnes again. I am your Austin chapter president. Richard Gadberry, our DFW chapter president. I think it's been a great conversation. If you are looking to come on to the Texas Business Broker, Richard and I would love to interview you and have a conversation about the business with you. And thank you so much for everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.